Thank you for joining the November session of Dr. Jaspersoft. I'm your host, Paul. Today we'll be talking about the visualization components and the embedded interactive reports in your web apps. Today I have four guest speakers for you. I have Yuri, Grant, Ankita, and Eduardo. Here's just a quick disclaimer. Then do remember, vote for your next Dr. Jaspersoft session. It's the second of every Thursday. The next one's on December 12th, and that one will be about building reports and visualizations with Web Studio. You can always select that link in the Dr. Jaspersoft webpage, and you can always vote for what you'd like to see next. Today's agenda, we'll see what is the Jaspersoft Visualize Components, how to use JV Tools package, how to use the JV Input Controls package, and how to use the JV Scheduler package. Our first guest speaker is Yuri. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to him.
Hi there. My name is Yuri Platosh. I'm Director of Engineering here at Jaspersoft. Today we want to introduce our new toolkit called Jaspersoft Visualize Components. This toolkit is React based. We have it works together with Visualize and Jasper Repo Server. Also, it allows developers to build their own custom user experience using our rich, modern, configurable, and accessible components. At first, we will introduce two components. One is input controls, and the other one is scheduler. So what is Jaspersoft Visualize Components? First of all, it's open source toolkit. It's free to use. You can use it in your own application. You can also contribute to this project. We are working on the guideline for contribution. It will be available soon. It's also licensed under BSD free license. It is also modern. We built it using TypeScript, and we use Vue as our build system. Everything is React, and also we are using Material UI as our UI components library. It is also configurable, meaning you can control your you can control the look and feel of the components that you use. For example, if you're working with input controls and let's say you're embedding some Boolean input control, you can choose which component to use for it. For example, it can be switch or it can be checkbox. Also, you can customize workflows. For example, and you will see it in the demo, but for example, if you use Scheduler UI, it has multiple tabs. Each tab has different controls. So you have control which controls and which tabs can be visible to your users. And you can also set defaults, especially it's important for those controls that you are hiding. Also, we have support for accessibility, basically screen reader support and keyboard navigation in there. And as an example here, we have date input control. So you can use keyboard navigation to navigate between different parts of the date. You can use arrow keys to navigate between months, day, year. Also, if you hit tab, you can navigate to calendar button. And if you hit return or backspace, you will see calendar itself, and you can navigate inside the calendar and select the date. Also, these components are ready to use today. You can use your favorite tool to install this NPM npm packages. You can use npm or yarn tool, and you can start using it right away. So who should use it? Everyone who is embedding Jaspersoft, either you're embedding visualizations or you're embedding applications or any functionality, we believe these components will be very useful for you. And why you should use them? Because it will allow you to implement your applications faster. You can integrate these components with your own UI, your own components. You can customize look and feel, and we also provide accessibility, which will be available to your users. Also, we have documentation available. So there will be a link in the end of this presentation as well, and many other links that will be useful for you. In this case, we present here documentation. It has introduction section where you can see how to install it. You can see also which components are available for you. And for each component, there will be detailed documentation about how to use it, how to customize look and feel. And there will be also some demo application that you can try and see how those components work for you. And the same for scheduler and for tools. And there is also a demo application, which also will show you these components, how to use them, how they work and how they look. And another thing which is available for you today is GitHub. Basically, on the GitHub, you have the source code of these components. You can look and read how to build them from source code if you want to do that. You can fork this repository, or you can use Reddit Build components from npm registry. If you have any questions or if you find some bugs, you can log a new bug or log an issue with a bug or with a question that you have. Please select a label that will tell us what is this issue about. Is it bug, or if it's a question, select question, and also select component it belongs to. So you'll be able to easily manage all the incoming inquiries from you. All right, and now I'm heading to Grant, who will present JV Tools, our first package.
Hello, my name is Grant Bacon. I'm a lead software engineer here at Jaspersoft. All right, so today I'm going to talk about a couple of the packages we have. So the first one is JV Tools. This is kind of a general tool package that will have utilities for working with any of the components. So anyone who's familiar with Visualize.js already, it's loaded from JRS. So your JRS instance has the JavaScript, and we provide some kind of ease of use tools for obtaining that in your web app. So as Yuri mentioned before, all of these packages are available through common package managers for the JavaScript dev environment like Yarn and npm. So in a terminal, you can simply use yarn add and then the name of the package you want to work with. So for example, JV Tools. So I have this kind of sample repo where I've already added the dependencies, and you can see they're present here in the package JSON. So the Vue Tools package, like I mentioned, allows you to obtain the Visualize.js script. So in this example, we're just going to take a look at the beginning here. We describe an authentication object. This has your credentials for the user that you allow to do embedding with. And then you also have the URL to a server where you have the Visualize.js script. So in this example, we provide, for those of you familiar with React, it's a custom hook called use visualize, where you can then pass it the two objects that we just talked about. And then you have the what's called the object, which you'll pass on to any of the components you work with. Realize that that's kind of an abstract package, but I think it'll make sense when you work with some samples. I guess here's one that is a little more hands-on, easy to look at. So we're going to look at this sample, the report viewer sample. And here at the top, this is a rendering of one input control. And that input control is related to this report that you see below. The report here is just being rendered with Visualize.js's report feature, report viewer. And this control is what we're talking about today. The input controls package provides this. So this input control is described in JRS and has different properties on how it functions. And you can see we can interact here with it and click update report. And these are wired together so that it will update the report viewer below with the options that we selected. Let's see. You can see here we only have food revenue showing now because that's the only option that was selected. So to work with this tool, we are going to look again at this sample on my right. So there are two ways that we can work with the JV input controls package. So some of you may have a web app that's already using React. If that's the case, then we provide through this package a React component called input controls. And you can use that component amongst your other React components, as you can see in the sample below. And then we also have a JavaScript approach. So if you're not using React in your project, this is just kind of like a helper method that essentially uses React to render the components in a provided div element that you provide. You can see each of these take the same parameters, except for the other option, you additionally need to provide a div that will render the controls in. The V object is the one that we obtained before with the JV Tools custom hook. The URI is the URI pointing to the resource. So in our case, it's the report that I showed you in the report viewer. And then the config I'll talk a bit about later is just how you can adjust the look and feel. So there are many input control types already supported by JRS that will now be supported by this component, such as Boolean, text, number, date time, single select, and multi-select. And each of these will have different configurations, and you can provide for all of the controls for a certain resource, certain events that will be callbacks that are called in the case of certain events. So currently change. So when we make a change to the control, then the provided callback can be called with the description of those controls. On the right, you can see, for example, both of these are the same input control. It's a Boolean input control, but one of them shows a switch and the other is a checkbox. So when Yuri talked earlier about customizing look and feel, this is what we're talking about. You can provide certain configurations that will allow you to alter how the look and feel is for your own needs. In addition, we have some validations that will take place. I believe Eduardo will talk a bit more about this in detail, but there are certain validations that you can describe when you're creating the input control in Jasper Studio, such as mandatory, read-only, you can set min max values or a regular expression pattern for matching. And we will handle all of these out of the box with the components provided. And now I'm going to allow Eduardo to present the rest of the package.
Hi everyone, my name is Eduardo and I'm a lead software engineer here at Jaspersoft. Okay, so continuing with the demo of the JB input controls package, I'm going to show you some validation errors and error handling for this package. So the first thing I want to show you is that at this point, you already have seen how to render input controls using either the render input controls method or the React approach. So in this case, I'm using the render input controls. I have a very basic configuration. I only have success, error, and events change method. So in this case, I want to show you first the authentication error. So here we have a valid user that has been created on this Jasper report server. But in this case, I will use another user, which hasn't been created in this Jasper report server. So what it will happen is that now, and let me refresh the page. Now the JV input controls package and the JV tools will try to connect to that Jasper report server using these credentials. But of course, as this is not a valid user, then we will see this authentication error thrown in the console. So this is being thrown by the use Visualize hook, which is provided by the Jaspersoft /JV tools package. And of course, it's saying that this name and password is not valid on this Jasper report server. So this is the first error that I wanted to show, the authentication error. Let me go back to a valid user. And now I want to show you connection errors. So suppose that maybe your Jasper report server is not active, suppose that it's down, or by any reason you are writing or you are typing an invalid domain. Let's say that, for instance, I add these keys. So in case your Jasper report server is down or something, it will take around a minute to try to contact that, or in this case, as we are seeing here, it will show you this error, which it says that the domain is not resolved because this is not a valid URL. But also, let's say that for some reason, you simply add this. And it will try now to, again, try to download the Visualize.js from this specific domain. And in this case, it might take a while because the domain is valid, but now it's trying to fetch that resource from that specific URL. But suppose that your system is down, or like in this case, you have typed wrong the address where to download the Visualize.js. So when this happens, as you can see, it's trying to fetch, it's trying to fetch, it's trying to fetch. It will take 1 minute top to actually throw you an error here on the console and show you that the resource is invalid or has not been found on the server. So yeah, let's take a moment. And yeah, so like in this case, it's saying that there is an error when trying to load Visualize.js. And basically a timeout has happened in the sense that it tried to fetch the resource, it couldn't find it, so now it will throw you an error. Now, in this case,
Yeah, real quick, Eduardo, just on that, just
yes,
to clarify, it'll only show you the error in the developer tools, right? It won't show you anything on screen. Is that right?
yes, this is because we are using this hook, but later in this call, my colleague Ankita, she will show how to handle those errors. She will show you a different approach where you can actually catch those errors. But yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the following error that I want to show is what we call validation errors. And this is related to the actual input controls. So to show you this, the first thing I want to do is I want to change the Jasper report that we are going to connect. In this case, and this is only for me, I will use a local installation. But again, this is a valid URL. So if you have a Jasper report, a remote Jasper report server, you can easily change this. Okay, it is not something related to only my local machine. So at this point, I am also connecting or downloaded a different report that has input controls added to that report. So let's see how it looks on the UI. So as we can see, we have different input controls. We have some multi-select input controls or select input controls. But I want to focus on these last three, the text field, the date field, and the number field. So the first thing I want to show you is that these fields will show you an asterisk or a star. This means that this input control is mandatory, is required. So if that's the case, then you cannot leave empty this input control. So if I remove everything, it will immediately show you that, hey, this field is mandatory, so you have to type something. In the moment that you type something, that error is gone. The same with this date field. So this date field, as you can see, it has only a range of valid values. So if I want to select something before November 1st, I can't. And if I want to select something after November 14th, I can't. So I only have this interval of time. One thing, for instance, let's say that I select November 1st, and then I use my keyboard and I try to go to October. I can't. It will loop only in the interval of time that I have allowed. Okay. And finally, I have this number field is also required, but another validation that has been added is that there is only an interval of numbers that you can select. It is, I think it's going from 0 to 100, but the 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 maximum and the minimum are strict, which means that you cannot select the maximum and the minimum. So in this case, as you are seeing, it says that the number should be lower than 100. And if you leave empty, it will show you that you have to specify something for this field because it's mandatory. So if I put something lower than 100, the error will be gone. Now, this is on the UI, but you can also manipulate these errors on the code. And for that, on the change event, we will not only give you the input control state, as mentioned before, but we will also give you another param called validation result. And for this, I will simply log the value of the validation result to show you how this guy is being used, how the validation result is being used. So again, I will put this on, it's mandatory. So I will remove everything from here. I will put something that is not in the valid range. So the validation result will send you something on every change. Similarly, to the input controls parameter. On every change, this guy validation result will throw you something. And it will throw you something. It will return an object where the key will be the ID of the input control. How do I know that this is the ID? Well, the API, in this case, the API from the Jasper report server, it's using Visualize.js is connected to that Jasper report server, and it will fetch the input controls. And this guy, the input control, will let you know all the input controls that we are seeing here. So if we check the number field, we see that the ID for this input control is number field. We will check that for date field session, this is the ID. And we will check that for the text field session, this is the ID. So here, what this validation result object will be throwing is that every key will correspond to the ID of the input control that could have or not the error that is happening on that input control. So for instance, in the number field, this is the ID, and we are seeing that the same error that is being shown here is also being thrown here. And for the text field session, we are seeing that the same error that is being thrown here is also being sent in here on the validation result. Now, this is very handy because assume that you are showing a report, and depending on the values that you have for the input controls or for the filters, you might want to enable or disable a button. So with this, you can easily now disable or enable the button for updating this report. Once the errors are gone, for instance, like in this case, everything is valid, then validation result will become false, okay? It will be a Boolean and it will be false, which means that there is no error on the input controls that we are seeing here. This is how it works. It is in line with the input controls Visualize.js API. It's the same API. This is the validation errors. And of course, for every input control type, we have these kinds of validation, and the validations will depend on the metadata that is returned from that server. So for instance, in this case, this is the text field session. We have here the data type. We are seeing that this is a text, and we are seeing that is mandatory, that is required. In case of the number field, we are seeing that it's a number type. It has a min value and a max value, and both of them are strict, which means that these cannot be selected. So you can only select from 1 to 99. So based on this metadata returned from the server, these validations will work. So it's all up to the user when creating the input controls, how to define those requirements or those limitations for the input control, okay? Now, another error that I want to show is that suppose that you are using these render input controls, or you are using the React approach. Here, we also have this error property. So this error property is used for kind of like any general error that we have. So in here, I have an example. So in order to render these input controls, we need to provide a div where we are going to render the input controls. So in this case, we have this div, which is an empty div with this ID. And this is what we are providing to that render input controls method. But let's assume that for some reason, you provide an invalid ID, right? So let me refresh the page one more time. The ID is not valid, okay? So the first thing is that we are seeing that the input controls are not rendered. We are not seeing the input controls again, but we are seeing this error. And here it is being thrown the error that, the container or the DOM element that has been provided is not defined. So this is the error. Of course, you might use another approach. You might not want to console log this, you can do that. It's a matter of using this error method. And lastly, let me revert my changes. Lastly, I want to show how to use the input controls in order to update a report, like in this case. So we have this report has been defined with only one input control, and the input control that is being defined is a single select, okay? So again, the idea of these packages is that you can use this and embed wherever you can. So here we have this input control, and let's say that you want to update this, right? So let's say that I only want to see the results for drink, product family drink. So I simply select this guy, and then I click on update report. So what it will do is will update the report with only the selected values. And again, you can do whatever you want. So let's say that you only want to see food and non-consumable. So you select, you are done with the changes, and then you simply update the report. And this is very nice because assume that you have many input controls, not only one, many input controls, like in the previous example. And once you are done with all the changes, when you are done with all the configurations, then you simply click update report, and the report will be updated. And this is pretty much it because it's up to you. In this case, it's a very simple UI. So I have here the button, I have here the div where the input control will be rendered, and I have here the div where the report is being rendered. So the logic for updating the report is once I have the control, the input controls state updated, I simply call the report API from Visualize.js. I provide those input controls state, and I simply run it again. And immediately, as you can see, I don't have any code related to the report. Immediately through Visualize.js, the report will be updated. Now, this is all I have for the demo of this part of the JV input controls package. I just want to mention now some limitations that we have with this package. So the first thing is that if you have an input control that is being controlled through cascading feature, so we don't have implemented, we have not implemented the cascading feature. So this is something that will be added in the future. We will also be adding more components by types. So if you go to our page, our documentation page, you will see all the available input controls type that we have added. But in the future, we will be adding more. Also, as you can see again, and Paul asked previously, so with this use visualize hook, we are only throwing or only showing the errors in the console. In the near future, we might be adding a new param, an object where you can provide, for instance, a callback that can be executed when an error has happened. So that's also on the plan, and currently it's a limitation for the use visualize hook. And another thing we want to mention is that in the future, we might also add an extension point for custom components of input controls. So the idea is that along the road, we will be adding more input control types, but we also want to provide an API so that any user, any developer can extend our implementation and create their own APIs. And the cool about that is that you'll be able to add whatever style you want, whatever interaction you want. And through this API that we are going to give, any updates in the future won't destroy your changes related to styles or something. It will be, the idea is to have this API that will allow any updates or any upgrades in the future without harming your existing implementation. So yeah, this concludes the JV input controls package demo.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. Appreciate it. And Kita, you're up next.
So hello everyone, I'm Ankita. So today I'm going to show you how to install and use scheduler package into your application. So the first step is the installation. So you can use any package manager, that is yarn or npm. So if you are using yarn, you can just use yarn add @jaspersoft/jvscheduler command, so that you will get access to all the APIs and typing into your application for JV scheduler package. So whenever after installing, you will get access to some of the APIs, that is render scheduler and the scheduler, and one type definition, that is scheduler props. So whenever you want to use pure vanilla JavaScript API, you can use render scheduler API. And whenever you want to use React component, you can use scheduler API. And the scheduler props is a type definition for the scheduler. So there are two approaches by using which we can use our scheduler plugin. So first one is a React component and second one is a JavaScript function. So for the React component, we need to pass three parameters. So first one is a V. So V is what? V is a Visualize.js object, which we are getting from Visualize.js. The second one is a URI. So URI is the resource URI upon which we want to have the scheduler functionality. It can be the report URI or dashboard URI. The third parameter is a configuration parameter, that is a config parameter. So these include some of the mandatory parameters as well as optional parameters, which are required for a scheduler to get rendered. So for the React approach, this is the syntax. And for the JavaScript API, apart from these three options, there is one more option we need to pass to the JavaScript API. That is the container. That is the division in which we want to render our application. So this is how this is the syntax for that as well. So this is how we can use our scheduler in both of the approaches. Now let me just go to the demo. Okay. We have created a simple React application. So here you can see that I have mentioned the Visualize URL. So this is the URL upon which we have hosted our Visualize.js. The another thing is the credentials. So credentials are the authentication credentials by using which we are going to authenticate to Jasper report server. And the third one is a resource URI by using which we are going. This is the URI of a report or dashboard upon which we are going to have our scheduler functionality. So this is our simple React component. So as we are using Visualize.js for authentication purpose, I have imported Visualize.js loader from JV Tools. This is another approach of loading Visualize.js using JV Tools. So here on line number 21, you can see that I have a local state. This is for just to store the Visualize value whenever our Visualize gets loaded successfully. So in a use effect, you can see that for the Visualize.js loader, I have passed the Visualize URL. So it will return you a promise. So after this load Visualize, this load Visualize function gets called, it will return you a callback function. So for this callback function, we need to pass some parameters. So the first parameter is an object in which we need to pass authentication. So the authentication which we have declared on line number 12. And the second parameter is the success parameter. So whenever the Visualize factory function gets successfully executed, this callback will get called. And on line number 35, the error callback. So whenever there is an error while executing Visualize factory function, this callback gets called. So the another approach to handle the thing that whenever our this Visualize URL is invalid, so we can just have a catch block after then. Yeah, so here we can just have a catch block, and here you will have error, and user can handle it in the way he want. He can just do it like a console.log, like error, or he can just have a alert box or something that he wants. So this is how we are loading our Visualize. And on line number 33, you can see that whenever the Visualize factory gets successfully executed, we are setting our visualize value to the local state. So this is how we are loading our visualize in the application. And this is the simple thing. I will show you what this actually is. And in the package.json, you can see that there is no JV scheduler plugin for now. So let me just run this application. So you can see that in this blank panel, after clicking on the schedule button, I will render our scheduler plugin. And in the behind UI, I have a report render and some of the DOMs and things. So how I have rendered the report here, I have just used Visualize.js to render a report. This is a simple thing that many of you know. And now let me just add our plugin using yarn package. So I will just use yarn add at the rate. Okay. So now you can see that the our scheduler plugin gets added to the dependencies of package.json. Uh, Let me just add this here as well. Import, as I'm using React based application, I will use scheduler from JV scheduler. And then in this drawer that I already showed you, I will pass scheduler. So we need to pass 3 parameters. So first one is a visualize object. Second one is a resource URI. So the resource URI which we have already declared above. And third one is a configuration. So the configuration, for the configuration thing, I have created a file. Okay, let's add configuration here. So there are some of the basic mandatory fields which we need to add in the configuration. That is a server upon which our Jasper report server is hosted. So I am passing here the mobile demo URI. And the next one is a context API, context path. And another thing is I want, this is not mandatory, but I want to show the tabs order in my way. So I don't want default tabs order. So let me just. Let me just build this application first. And run this application. Okay, there is some error. Okay, configuration. I need to pass the configuration over here. Okay, so this is the default scheduler UI. So we can have many configuration here. That is, we can change the order of our tabs. Then we can hide and show fields as well as tab. We can hide our stepper. So let me show you how we can do that. So let me just change the order of the tab. Let me have the notification tab as a first. Yeah, and let me just hide our parameters tab. So whenever you want to hide any tab, you just need to remove it from our array of tabs order. You can see that our parameters tab is not there, and the order of tabs also got changed. Let me just undo this change. Okay. So what if user wants to hide this notification, also this stepper component? I don't want to see that stepper component. So there is a configuration for that as well. So you just need to specify the stepper, and in that show. So by default, this show property is true. If you want to hide the stepper, you just need to mention here as a false. Here you can see that the stepper is not there. So now another thing in the configuration is that what if I want to pass some default values for any field from the tabs, or what if I want to hide any fields from these tabs? So we are having access for that as well. So how we can do it? Let me just hide the first field, that is the schedule job name, and let me just pass some default value for description as well. So for that, you need to have one more property here, that is tabs data. And in the tabs data, if you want to mention something related to schedule, you just need to mention schedule. And here, as what we have done, we have tried to keep the name of the fields here as we have create schedule API. So for the schedule job name, I'm having label as a property here. And then show, I want to show this property as false, and this is a mandatory field. We need to pass value as well. Okay, and for the description, I just want to pass the value here. You can see that the first our level fields get hidden, and what happened to description? Let me just check the name of the field. Yeah, so you can see that the default value got passed to the label field. So this is for all the fields. You can do it for all the fields of the plugin. So you can pass default value, you can hide the specific field, or you can hide stepper as well as the specific tab, or you can change the order of the specific tab. So the next thing is the event handling. Another thing here is the parameters tab. So for the parameters tab, what we have done, we have used our JV input controls plugin, which Eduardo explained earlier for this. So how we are going to pass the configuration here. So the configuration will be same, the what Eduardo has shown us, the same configuration which we are passing for the input control plugin. So like this. So this will be same as input control plugins. So this is for tabs data. So now let me show you how we are handling events. I will just copy paste all the events from here. So here we are handling 4 events. That is, one is success, another one is an error, third one is a cancel button click, and fourth one is a schedule button click. So when success callback gets called, so whenever our plugin gets rendered perfectly fine, our success callback get called. When error callback get called, so whenever there is error while rendering our plugin, this callback gets called. Like whenever you are using a JavaScript API and you are passing container to that API, and that container is not there in the DOM, so you will get this callback will get passed. Like whenever the label you have you have mentioned this show label as false, but you haven't provided value, but the label field is mandatory and we are not passing any default value in our plugin. So in that case, it will also throw some error. And a cancel button click, this is a callback. Whenever user this is a callback, it will get called when user clicks on the cancel button. And it's a schedule button click. So this callback will get called whenever we will click on the schedule button. So it will have 2 parameters. The first one is schedule created successfully, that this will give you Boolean value. So if the schedule gets created successfully, it will give you true. And if the schedule is not created successfully, it will give you false. And the job info of the respected schedule. So let me just show you how the success will work here and how error will work. You can see that I have console.log success, and as our render schedule plugin gets render perfectly fine, it goes to the success callback. Now let me introduce a error here. Let me just remove this value and show is false. I will not pass any value here. As you can see that this field is mandatory field and we are not passing any value and we are hiding that value. So it should throw some error. I have console.log error, yeah. You can see that our error callback gets called, and here you will get key value pair. So key is some kind of key for the particular error message. If you want to override that error message, or if you want to handle error message in different way, you can just override it in this error function or error callback. So yeah, so this is how we can handle events as well as show and hide fields as well as change tabs order. So if you want to have more information about which key we are using for which field, you can check the documentation for that. The another thing is the configurator. So in the documentation, we have provided a configurator. So it is just supporting now hide and show fields. So in the panel, that is configuration options panel, you can see that there are some fields and all the boxes are checked. So what the check boxes means? So whenever the box is checked, the respective field or respective tab or respective stepper is visible. And whenever that field is the checkbox is unchecked, the respective thing will be hidden. So let me just uncheck our, I think it will take time. Shit, I think. You can see that the stepper is hidden. So if you want to check which configuration has caused this UI to get rendered, that is stepper to get hide. So you just need to click on the code button. You will get all the configuration here, and you can see that here the stepper is a show false. And if you want to copy this configuration, you just need to copy. You just need to click on the copy button. The code will get copied, and you can paste it in your file. So yeah, this is it from my side. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Ankita. I do appreciate it. I want to do a special thank you to all our presenters today. They did really great. We do have 2 questions. I do see that I would like to be asked or answered live if we can. The first one, I think Yuri, maybe you'll be able to help out with these, is what type of visualizations are included in the packages?
Right. So at the moment we have just 2. It's input controls and scheduler, but we are planning to add more. And
Awesome.
there will be a survey which we'll send to all of you, where we will ask your opinion and preferences regarding future component that we'll want to implement. So it will help us to prioritize.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. One last question it seems that we got in was, can these components be easily integrated to other JavaScript frameworks, such as Angular or Vue.js?
Yes, that can be done. You can go JavaScript way. So as you've seen, we have 2 options, one React component and the other one JavaScript render input controls or render scheduler function. So you can use that in your in any basically frameworks which are JavaScript frameworks.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. Well, thank you again for everyone. I do appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share these last slides. So you'll be able to find our resources. Of course, we post on YouTube. You'll be able to find all our resources here on our slides. They'll be posted on that page as well. You'll be able to click the links and see the slides everyone shared with today. So you don't have to scribble down those URL links or anything like that. They'll be shared with you all. Also, like Yuri said at the very end, we'll send you after the webinar is concluded. They'll send you a survey because we'd love to hear back from you. We'd like to hear your valuable input and anything that can help us, present to you or getting to you. We'd be much appreciated. So there will be a survey sent out to you after the webinar, and if you can answer those and get those to us, we'd really appreciate it. Other than that, thank you very much for attending our November Dr. Jaspersoft session. Again, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you more.